This is Barbell Therapy, the podcast helping women build strength, confidence, and self-trust through fitness and real conversations. I'm your host, Coach Kate. Get comfy and let's get into it. Welcome back, Barbell Therapy fans. I am so excited to have Christie on the podcast today. She's a health and fitness coach for mamas who are looking to get fit without restriction. I'm going to let Christie tell us a little bit more about herself and what got her into what she does now and her journey. So Christie, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. I'll just start with sharing a little bit about myself. So I am 31 years old. I live in Connecticut with my two kids. My son is 6 and my daughter will be 3 actually next week, which is crazy. My husband and my dog, we are moving to North Carolina this upcoming summer. So we're really excited for that. I've lived in Connecticut my whole life, so that's going to be a big change. I work primarily with moms. I have been an online coach since 2020, and I started really working with general population. And then after having kids, I just realized kind of how different it can be. Like, moms live such a different life than, I don't want to say like normal people, because like what is normal, but like life without kids versus life with kids, it's very different. And so, I love working with moms that really have found themselves lost in motherhood, really due to their physical health, because I went through that. So if we take it all the way back to the beginning of my journey, actually, I am somebody who struggled with my weight my entire life. Like, I was always the bigger kid in school. I remember being bullied about my weight, and I didn't have the healthiest habits growing up. So I always watched my mom diet, and when it came to like the food we had in the house, it was always processed stuff. We ate a lot of fast food. I didn't do sports. I didn't move at all. So I also had a traumatic upbringing. There was a lot of emotional neglect, and so food was really my comfort. Food made me feel secure, and so I was literally addicted to food, and that was a very hard addiction to break later in life. I mean, I started dieting when I was in like middle school. Downloaded MyFitnessPal when I'm pretty sure I was a freshman. It populates like the 1,200 calories, so that's what I would try to eat. I did Weight Watchers with my mom when I was 12 years old, so like, safe to say, I struggled very early on, continued to struggle through my teenage years, and then in college. I also threw drinking into the mix, which is not a good combination with already super unhealthy habits. And then in 2016, that is when I discovered the world of macros, which is what I teach my clients now. But this, for some reason, just stuck differently with me than like any of the things that I had tried up until that point. But for a long time, I was still stuck in the cycle of I would do really good all week. And then on the weekend, it was like, okay, well, now there's all of these social things, or I've tried to avoid XYZ during the week. Like, now is the time. I would do a cheat day every single Saturday. Literally from like the moment I woke up, I would usually start my morning with a cheese Danish at the grocery store I worked at the time. And then I would just eat McDonald's and drink soda and like whatever, all the things basically that I couldn't have during the week. So this was also the first time that I ever started to consistently exercise. Prior to this, I was somebody who throughout high school, I would try to force myself to go to the gym, and I would go on the treadmill. I didn't know what I was doing. Would just try to run, and then I would feel like my lungs were going to combust, and then I'd be like, I'm not going back. I wouldn't go back for like 3 months. I also discovered the world of lifting weights. And that was the first movement I found that I actually really enjoyed. And so I started doing that probably too consistently. I was going to the gym like 6, if not 7 days a week, because again, there was just like a lot of things happening in my life, and it was like therapy for me. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But I went 3 years, so 2016 to 2019, I went 3 years without losing 1 single pound, even though I felt like I was doing all the right things, right? Like, I was putting in all this effort. I was tracking my food during the week. I was exercising nearly every day. I would drink during this time. I don't know if you ever did this, Kate, but I would bring around like the Poland Spring gallon water bottle, which now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's just so cringy now, but whatever. So I was doing a lot, right? But I went 3 years without losing a single pound because my relationship with food was still really bad. It was like a control issue. Fast forward in 2019, I got pregnant with my son, Carter, and I put on a lot of weight. Like, I am a very small human. I am barely 4'11". And towards the end of my pregnancy with him, I was around like 220 pounds. So when I had him, my physical health really held me back in a lot of ways with showing up as the best mom I could for him. And that was kind of a moment where something just clicked, where I realized like I'm continuing the same cycle that was passed on to me, and I need to break that cycle. So it really at this point, and this is something that I talk to a lot of moms in specific about, it becomes a lot less about what you look like or what weight are you on the scale, and more about like, what am I teaching my kids?
Yeah.
How is my physical health really affecting the way that I show up for them? And at the end of the day, although he was a baby when I started to make changes, I remember like trying to baby wear him and just being physically in so much pain, like my back hurting so bad, struggling to stay awake, when I was taking care of him, because my body was just so exhausted. And so I ended up hiring my first coach, and I went on to lose 75 pounds. Finally really worked on my relationship with food, got in the best shape I had ever been in. I got pregnant with Chloe, my daughter, in 2022, had her in 2023, had a much healthier pregnancy this time. Lifted all the way basically up until when I delivered. My eating habits were much healthier, and obviously still gained weight because I was pregnant. But this time, losing the weight postpartum felt so much easier because I did the hard work of changing my mindset, my relationship with food. And that is really what led me to what I do and helping other women. Because, from what I see from experience, a lot of women are doing a lot of the right things, but it's that the mindset isn't there, or there's self-sabotage happening, or they're just trying fad diet after fad diet. And so my goal is to teach moms, hey, this doesn't have to be miserable. You don't have to restrict yourself from every food you love. In fact, that's probably the biggest thing holding you back from seeing consistent results.
No, and I love that. And so many parallels between you and I for sure. But also, I'm sure plenty of millennials. I don't know many women that didn't download MyFitnessPal or something. I remember you were saying that, and it unlocked this memory of I downloaded this app called Lose It, and it's somehow connected to my Facebook. And my cousin texted me, and he goes, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but like I think your Facebook is hacked." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "This Lose It keeps popping up on your Facebook, like, and talking about your food intake." And I was so embarrassed because I'm like, "Oh no, like, that's me trying to lose weight." And it was like very uncomfortable. He definitely didn't address it after that. But I think we all always tried to lose weight and just chronic dieting, and we have no idea what relationship with food even means anymore, because you went from chronic dieting to I need to have healthy balance and needing to fuel your body. And I think what you said about macros just meaning so much more than calories. I just did a call for my clients on food volume and talking about like the reason that macros are important is because it teaches us the quality of our food. It's not just about calories, right? I made a bowl that had beef, potatoes, carrots, and it had the same amount of calories as an Uncrustable, but I was obviously far more full from my dinner. And those things like are only really apparent when you start talking about macros. But then what I find is that most women feel so scared of tracking food and scared of, being restrictive because like you and I, their only relationship to tracking has been restriction or this need to diet and lose weight.
Yeah, for sure. And for me too, it's just so ironic because at the point when I was doing a lot and I wasn't losing any weight, I literally thought there was something wrong with me. My metabolism has to be broken, or I need to get blood work done by my doctor. And now looking back, I can see clearly like the cycle that was repeating and happening. And this happens with a lot of my clients as well, where it's like, I'm frustrated because I'm not getting the result that I want. But it's like, we have to be honest about if you're giving C, sometimes even B level effort, then your results are going to be a reflection of that. And I agree. I don't see macros as a diet. I see them as a way to just have awareness around what you're eating in a day, because most women just do not have that awareness. And it's not your fault either. I really want whoever's listening to this to realize that it's literally the way our society is. Look at the serving sizes at restaurants. Look at the way our food is made. I mean, they don't make it easy for us. So you almost have to work really hard to go against modern day societies. It's really not you that's doing anything wrong. You just have to again, have that awareness around what a healthy balance of macros looks like depending on what your specific goal is.
Absolutely. And like to your point, when we go out to eat and we have pasta, you never know how much you're having. But if you look at the servings, and then I grew up, family of 4 would eat 1 box of pasta in one night. 1 box of pasta, 1 pound of pasta was 4 servings. And then when you look at the nutrition label though, there's actually 8 servings inside. And like we just have no idea. And saying, hey, only have 1 serving of pasta is not inherently restrictive. It's just being more aware of what you're having. It's not, I want you to track this macro because you're on a diet. It's, hey, I want you to understand like what the serving size is. And doesn't mean you can't have more. You're teaching women how to hit their goals without restriction. But in order to lose weight, we have to have some restrictions. So tell us a little bit more about what that really looks like for you.
Yeah, this is such a good question because I think we really need to start with what our definition of restrictive is, right? Because what I think is restrictive might be different from another person's definition of restrictive. My definition of restriction is really the limiting of certain foods based on food fear, guilt, food rules, or control. And to a certain extent, we do have to restrict, right? In order to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. Very simply put, meaning you need to intake less calories than you're burning in a day. So a non-restrictive approach, aka the way that I do it with my clients, the same way Kate does it, it doesn't mean it's eating whatever you want all the time with no structure. It means that you allow yourself to have all foods. You make choices based off how certain foods make you feel. This was a huge shift for me in my own journey. It was less about what do the calories say and more about how is this actually going to make me feel. Most women don't slow down enough to even recognize how food makes them feel. They're chronically inflamed. It's just their normal. And for me, it was that way for a long time too. Again, like back in my childhood, my teenage years, like that was just the way that I ate. So that was my normal. I thought feeling that way was normal. It's not normal at all. But again, making choices based off of how food is going to make you feel, not from a place of fear. Oh, I can't have the donut. I can't have pizza with my family, whatever it is, right? Like you think about having what you want, but then adding what you need. That's one of the core philosophies I teach my clients. Perfect example. We got lunch over the weekend for Valentine's Day. And one of my favorite meals is penne alla vodka. Even though I'm in a calorie deficit right now, I'm not putting pasta off limits. Like, first of all, this is a moment of enjoyment with my family for a holiday that we are excited to celebrate together. Maybe it's not the biggest holiday, it's Valentine's Day, but we like to romanticize the holidays over here. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I can't have pasta because I'm on a diet. Because number one, that puts food on a pedestal. It makes it a really big deal in my head. And then the moment that I let myself have that, I'm going to go overboard. Second of all, I don't ever want my kids to hear their mom say, I'm on a diet. I can't have that. So instead, I focused on having what I wanted, which was the pasta, and then I added what I needed. So I added grilled chicken to it. When the meal came home, obviously, like I was just talking about a second ago, the portion sizes are freaking huge. So I grabbed my normal size bowl. I, weigh the food on my food scale because again, I'm in a deficit phase right now. So I need to have that extra level of accuracy as much as I can. And I ate probably like a quarter of the serving of pasta and I felt satisfied. Versus in the past, when I restricted certain foods like carbs or whatever, I would make a really big deal out of these moments. I would either not let myself have it and feel annoyed that I had to miss out, or I would have had it and I would have said, oh my God, like as soon as tomorrow comes, I'm back on my diet. I can't have that again. And so I probably would have eaten almost the whole thing, if not the whole thing. I think when you can really learn to take food off of this pedestal, it changes everything because most women deal with food noise, right? Feeling controlled by food. And so the goal is to get to a point where you can finally, what I like to say is just like eat like a normal human being and not like be obsessive over foods or not feel like, you can't have certain things. And so again, to tie it back in, it's not that it's a free for all to just eat whatever you want, whenever you want. There has to be some structure. There have to be some boundaries, but it's about being able to enjoy the damn donut if you want the damn donut. And that's the beauty in macros and the way that we approach it with that, because you can have that and it becomes not such a big deal. And I had that pasta and I woke up to a new low weigh-in the next morning. So it just goes to show that it's just truly about the way that you approach it.
The type of stress that like having to make those decisions puts on us, again, because of the guilt and the shame that is like centered around it, truly does have an impact on inflammation and just like how we are addressing stress in our body. And it's so important to understand that we can make empowered decisions over what we want. Like, even if you didn't eat it at home and you ate it at the restaurant instead, and you had to modify, or maybe you didn't eat the whole thing, whatever that looks like, you might have had to guess, but you get to make that empowered decision of, well, I really want this, so I'm going to have it. And if I go over a little bit, then I go over a little bit. Like, it's not a big deal. It's one meal. I'm consistent 85+% of the other time. Like, it's not going to ruin my progress. Same thing with a donut. If you have a donut, but then you end up being hungry and still want to satisfy getting enough protein, getting enough fiber in, and you end up going over, that's okay too. You have to come from a place of empowerment and decision making that feels good for you, and being able to see that through macro coaching and reducing the food noise is definitely part of that journey.
Another important piece of that too is if this is something that's like constantly coming up for you, you're constantly in these situations where you're eating out or whatever, you also have to take a look at really the structure of how you're doing things. So I typically eat out once a week. That's on the weekend with my family. That is an intentional meal. I know when it's going to be happening. I'm looking at the menu ahead of time. But again, if it's something that's happening all the time and you're like swinging through the drive-through, or you don't have a plan for dinner and you just order pizza or whatever, it depends on what the situation is with how you're going to approach it, but always approaching it from a place of, I don't have to feel guilty for this, but I also need to have boundaries if I want to reach my goals.
Releasing yourself of the guilt, but also, again, making empowered decisions over every single decision you make is super, super critical. And being realistic about what that does to your timeline, or because if you're doing it multiple times a week and then you're isolating the incident as like one off, but then it's happening 3 or 4 times a week, again, now we're not really looking at the big picture or being realistic about what we're doing. We're just looking at these one moments and choosing a narrative that works. And that's, again, like where coaching comes into play, because we have to open up your perspective on that. Talking about guilt, I know we always hear women talk about mom guilt. I'm not a mom yet, but we know that mom guilt is real. But what I really want to get into is, do you think sometimes women create guilt out of societal pressure? And how do we combat it to still put our goals first when we're dealing with it?
I feel like a lot of times moms do this without really even realizing it. And most, if not all of the time, it doesn't come from something that you're actively doing wrong. It comes really from these internalized expectations about what being a good mom looks like. And, I always say that I feel like it's never been harder to be a mom in society, because with the rise of social media, it has a lot of pros and cons. But one of the cons is that it's always the comparison game. Like, oh, this mom is doing this, or this mom is doing that, and this mom is super self-sacrificing, or, we just see like these little snippets into people's lives. And so this really puts this pressure on us to feel like we always need to be available. We always need to be self-sacrificing. Our needs come last. We feel fulfilled only through motherhood. And then it's almost like this invisible badge of honor. And then we call that being a good mom. And so, I feel like I struggled with mom guilt in a lot of different ways, especially when I first had my son. After having my daughter, I felt like a little more prepared to be a mom. But I mean, especially if we think about the case of like putting your own needs first. I trained for my first half marathon for 6 months. Now, keep in mind, I grew up like hating running. I used to skip the mile run in high school. Actually, I would pretend to be sick that day. And so I trained for this half marathon for 6 months. And I remember each week that went by, obviously your long run gets longer and longer. And so every Saturday morning I would go out for my long run. And towards the end of that, I was out there for 2-3 hours getting this run done. Again, I'm a very tiny human, a very slow runner. I don't think it matters the speed, but I would start to feel guilty. And I would get in my head while on my run about like, I should be at home. I should be like feeling sorry for my husband that he was the one at home taking care of the kids. Or the gym that I go to, they have a babysitting area for kids. And this is the gym that I have been attending since my oldest was a baby. He started going there when he was 12 weeks and now he's 6.5. There was a period of time where when he was getting really sick of going there, he was like, I don't want to go. He would make like a super big deal. And I would start to feel bad and question myself, like, am I a bad mom for forcing him to come along with me and, putting him in the babysitting area while I work out? And this is something that I've really had to learn, is that being a good mom doesn't mean that my needs don't matter too. Like, I am allowed to go, I'm allowed to ask for help and go out for the run or go do my workout in the gym. And what I say to my kids, my daughter actually asked me this morning, why do we have to go to the gym? Apparently now she's in the phase where she's over it too. But I said to her, well, mommy has to exercise so it can be healthy and strong for you. I convey that also in a way that, like, when they ask questions or whatever of why I'm gone doing whatever thing, in a way that makes sense to them. But I really think to combat this, any sort of guilt that you are dealing with, we really have to redefine what the definition of a good mom means. Yes. Because in my opinion, it doesn't mean always being available, self-sacrificing, putting our needs last. It's that saying, like, if you want to, what's that saying?
Like airplane mask, put your mask on first.
Yeah, exactly. So when I start to feel that guilt come in, because it's normal to a certain extent, right? And I think the fact that you have mom guilt means that you're a good mom. So something that's really helped me, a question that I ask myself is, what would I hope that my daughter does when she's my age? Because she's learning through me and I'm showing up for myself in all these different ways, whether it's taking time to meal prep on a Sunday afternoon or going to the gym or whatever. Our kids are watching us. So while we can feel guilty, at least they're not sitting watching us just sit on the couch and not take care of ourselves. Like, our kids are always watching us. So modeling self-respect, consistency, taking care of yourself. Your kids do not benefit from a mom who is constantly depleted. And I say that as somebody who grew up with a mom who was that. And that was also kind of what I grew up to become. I was constantly depleted. I didn't take care of myself. I ultimately became what was modeled to me. And it took me many, many years to learn how to break that cycle until I was nearly 30. I feel like finally the past 2 to 3 years, I'm finally starting to break through. Again, it comes back to breaking these cycles for our kids. So again, recognize just because you have mom guilt does not mean you're actually doing anything wrong, and challenging these kind of old patterns, especially if you are brand new to making this lifestyle change, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Our brain really likes what is familiar. And so it's going to push back on you. It's going to try to mask something, like it's going to push mom guilt into your head to make you feel like you're doing something wrong. But again, asking myself, how would I want my kids to respond to this situation? What do I want my kids to learn? And then I have recently turned into an affirmation girly the last year or so. I never really cared for them before, but I think I just didn't understand how to use them in a way that made sense for my brain. But, really just reminding yourself, my needs matter too. Taking care of myself is selfless. This hour workout means that I can be a healthier, happier mom for my kids now and in the future when they have kids. I think we can hyper fixate on our goal in a way of like, what is the scale going to say? What do I look like? But at the end of the day, your physical health is a direct reflection of how you're going to show up for your kids, not only now, but many years down the line. If you don't make the changes, what is that going to mean for your life in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, when your kids have kids? That is something I think about all the time.
Making a change is uncomfortable and it pushes you to discomfort. But in order to be a different person, in order to show up differently, you have to change. And change requires discomfort and it requires something new. So if we just keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to produce the same results. And something that you have, you touched on is, I feel like this day and age, our age, many women are sitting here saying, I don't know if I want to become a mom. Do I want kids? My life is going to change, etc. And something that I have been seeing a lot of is that you get to make your life how you want it. You get to raise your kids how you want to raise them. It is not abnormal to take your kids on a daily walk outside, whether it's cold, whether it's hot. It's not abnormal to take your kids to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and put them in daycare. It's not abnormal to make food at home from scratch more often than you go out to eat, or play at home more often than you find something to entertain them throughout the day. Like, there's nothing abnormal about those things. You get to make those decisions for your family, and you get to do that. And so that's why I asked about the societal pressure. And it truly comes, like you said, from social media and all of these comparisons. And it's really finding the capacity and the things that work for you, for your family, for your lifestyle, and starting to sit in the discomfort of that might look different than your best friend or from your neighbor, but that's what works for you and your family, and that's okay. You're a business owner, a coach, a mom, as we know, a wife, you have a social life, but yet you're still showing up for yourself with your workout and your nutrition. And I know you've talked to us a lot about like how you've been able to do some of that, right? Like with asking for help and taking your kids to daycare, things like that. But I would love to know about some setbacks that you've had, how you overcame them, and then how you're doing it all, essentially.
A social life is a stretch.
Well, you and I talk all the time, so.
Just kidding. I'm just a homebody. I like being home. I don't like leaving the house. First of all, I don't do it all. I think that's really important to say out loud. I don't do everything perfect because I'm not perfect. I'm human, not a robot. When I really think about everything that I do in my day-to-day life, because I do consistently work out, go to the gym 4 days a week. I don't usually miss any of that. I do consistently track my food. I do all of the things that I need to do based on the season of life that I'm in. And the biggest thing that has allowed for me to do that, even if week to week it looks different, or like this week, for example, my son who's in kindergarten, he had Monday and Tuesday off from school. So I had to adjust my schedule a little bit, but I still got done what I needed to get done. And the reason for that is I have a lot of systems, flexibility, and really just my non-negotiables that give me structure going into each week. One thing I always say to people who are really struggling to stay consistent is, are we winging it every day? Or are we actually taking the time to create structure in our lives so that we know what the week looks like going into this week? So for example, on Sunday afternoon, I sat down, I pulled out my Google Calendar, and I took a look at my week. I looked at the different pockets throughout my week. Where can I fit in the workouts? Where can I fit this thing that I may need to do? Or do I need to move this around? When it comes to tracking food, I love tracking my food. I like having that awareness. It takes literally 5 minutes of my day. And if you are telling me that you are struggling to see results, but you're not consistently tracking your food 90% of the time, like, it's about our priorities, right? It's not something you have to do forever, but if you have an intentional goal, that's something you have to do. I tell my clients, okay, how can we create a system here that's going to make this feel easier? Because you have a lot on your plate, right? You have a very busy day. You don't want to have to pull out your food every single time you're eating a meal and log as you go throughout the day. How can we minimize that decision fatigue and go into our week to make nutrition feel simpler? So 2 steps I have all of my clients take. Number 1, meal planning. If you are going into your week and you have no idea what you're eating, when you're eating it, what that's going to look like, you're opening up your fridge and you're staring at it for 10 minutes, hoping you're going to find something that's high enough in protein or that's going to be good for your goals, right? You're doing yourself a disservice. Rather, take 15, maybe 20 minutes. In the beginning, it might take longer as you're getting used to doing this, but it takes me 5 minutes. Sit down, meal plan. This is what I'm going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's not about, making these Pinterest perfect, exciting recipes. Like, it can be very simple and basic, but at least going into your day knowing what you're going to eat, right? Because if you have a busy day, you want that decision already made for you. Open up whatever food logging app you use at the beginning of the day or the night before. Take 10 to 15 minutes to plan your entire day's worth of food. Start with the thing that you know you're for sure going to eat. Even if you only log 50, 60, 70% of your food and you don't know maybe what you're having for dinner yet, that's okay. But at least have that done before you even go into the day. Because then again, you're only having to do it once, maybe twice during the day, rather than opening your phone 5 or 6 times. And so the question I always ask myself, because again, I am a mom of 2 kids. My toddler is home with me all day. I am a business owner. Like, there is a lot on my plate. And so if I'm hoping that I'm going to make the right decision, it's not going to happen. Really learning to reduce the decision fatigue and really have these systems in your life that just make everything. And is that going to happen overnight? No, it's definitely a process to figure out what works for you. But again, if this is your priority, then you're going to make time to do that, right? And then when we think about setbacks, in my opinion, setbacks are only as dramatic as you make them. Have there been days where I go over macros? Yes. Have there been days where I miss workouts? Yes. The difference is that I don't completely avoid those setbacks. I don't let them turn into a full stop. This is something that a lot of the clients that come to me struggle with. I'm sure same for you, Kate. It's like that all or nothing mindset. And one comparison I love to use, imagine that you are driving on the highway to a brand new destination you've never been to before, and you have the address plugged into your GPS, and for whatever reason you get distracted and you miss the exit. What's going to happen? The GPS is going to reroute you. Maybe it's going to add like 5 minutes to your trip. That's annoying, but like you're still going to get there, right? Imagine if you treated that situation the same way that you treat your health and fitness journey, right? Let's say you miss a workout on like a Wednesday and you're like, the rest of the week has gone to shit, or I went over my macros on this one day. Like, I'm just going to start back over again on Monday. And you're setting yourself so far back versus if you took that one little setback for what it was and just picked yourself back up right at that next step, your entire journey would literally be so different. One thing that I've really had to work through in this journey to have all of these things come fairly easily is really protecting my identity, not just my habits. Meaning I don't only work out when I'm feeling motivated, right? Like I work out consistently, even on the days when I don't feel like it, but because that's just who I am. That's what I identify as. That is what I am proud of. And so even if it's raining outside or I'm a little bit tired, right? The other night I had a really weird night. I didn't get enough sleep. And the next morning I woke up for my usual workout. Instead of just saying, I'm tired, I'm not going to show up to the gym, I modified the workout. It's all about modifying, meeting yourself where you're at, and really just noticing that things don't have to go perfectly for things to move in the right direction. Coming back to affirmations and your identity. I know this is a little bit on the woo-woo side, but I truly believe that that plays a big part in our journey because who we identify with ultimately does dictate how we are going to show up. So if we believe genuinely that we are someone who weight loss is really hard for us, or we'll never get there, or we're the person who can't stay consistent, we are going to self-sabotage every step of the way. And so instead, if you can say, this future version of myself, the one who has already reached her goal, what would she be doing? Ask yourself that in those hard moments, because at the end of the day, it comes down to those two big things, right? It's your priorities, aligning your schedule, your life, your structure, your routines, your habits to reflect those priorities and your identity and what you believe you are truly capable of.
I love everything that you said because it's so affirming to everybody else too that like you have all of these things going on, but you very much so know that you're not doing it all the time, 100% of the time. It is just very difficult to be able to do that. And consistency over perfection will truly always win. Your vodka pasta, you woke up a brand new low because you were consistent, even though that one meal might not have been perfect. And same thing with your workouts. But I think that women have a really hard time seeing that it's okay to modify things because, again, it's the all or nothing mentality that's constantly creeping in around modifications, balance, etc. And then again, where having a coach and having somebody in your corner truly helps is making sure that that's not the conversation you're having consistently, because consistency, again, also is very important. So how often are we modifying? How often are we going over? How often are we doing all of these things? And again, not isolating into the moment, but seeing what the consistent pattern is. Are you more consistent than you're not? Or are you consistently saying, oh, it's just this one time? It's just this 1 week is really hard, but I'm going to get back on track on Monday. How many weekends in a row are we doing that?
Yeah, there's a big difference between those two because going back to the 3 years where I was working my butt off and I didn't lose a single pound, that was what I was doing every single week. So you also have to be real with yourself in that.
That's where macro coaching is one of the biggest game changers, is because it truly holds the mirror to you each and every single time. The data and being able to visualize it holds the mirror every single time. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing on day one of your journey, what would it be?
I would tell her to ask for support and just be willing to invest in support. Again, going back to going 3 years without losing a single pound and working so freaking hard, I was doing a lot of the right things, I would have saved myself years of headache of like all this effort and trying all these things. And during that time, I also truly felt so alone. And this is why I'm so passionate about coaching and what we do and how we get to help women, because this can be a really lonely journey. And for 99%, if not every single client that comes into my coaching program, it's like that support was the missing gap that they needed in order to understand it's okay not to be perfect, in order to have somebody to really lay out that clear plan for them or help them see their blind spots of why they're not seeing results, especially because, like I said, it can feel so defeating when you've tried everything and you feel like you are literally doing everything right, but you're not seeing results. And you wouldn't expect to master a skill you've never been taught. Yeah, that's exactly what people expect with their health. It's like we learned to drive a car for the first time. I learned that from like a driving instructor. Like regardless, somebody's going to teach you. Somebody wants to become a doctor. They go to school to learn the skills to be a doctor, right? And so I would have saved myself years of if I had just had the coach from the beginning. And I know that coaching can be intimidating. It can feel like, well, I don't know if this is going to work for me, right? Like, I think that's a very real fear for a lot of people. Kate and I are actually in the same business coaching program. So now that we've overcome not seeing the progress in our fitness journey, now we're learning, right? My business is fairly new. And so I invest in my business every single month, even though it's an uncomfortable investment. I went 3 years feeling stuck in my business, and things finally took off when I invested in mentorship to bridge the gap in the skill set that I couldn't figure out myself. I don't like to money shame, but people are so quick to drop money on a new car or like a handbag or a vacation or whatever, getting their nails done every 2 weeks, eyelash extensions, whatever it may be, yet they hesitate to invest in the one thing that affects their energy, their confidence, their longevity of life, literally the way that they feel every single day. And I wish I could like scream from the rooftops, your health deserves the same level of support. And it's kind of like this weird thing because, you know, for most people, like information is not the problem. You can find probably everything you need on Google, Chat GPT, or you probably maybe have signed up for tips or freebies, or you're listening to this podcast, but information is not the issue for you. It's implementation. A coach is the one that can help turn that knowledge into actual habits that stick, especially on your hard days. And that's really what would I tell myself, just hire the damn coach, invest in the support, because you can't buy a new body just like you can buy a new car if you don't take care of it or whatever else. Like our body is literally the one thing that, you know, we can't replace in this lifetime, but a lot of people don't treat it that way.
One thing that I will say is that I'm not a super woo-woo person either, but when you make the decision to change your life and have this transformation from the inside out, because again, you and I both, we coach women on the mindset and the ability to handle life stress outside of just the number on the scale that you're going to see. When you take charge of your life in that way, your wealth will increase, whether that's financially, with your relationships, etc., because you are now showing up in a completely different way. It's promotions or raise or your business taking off. I truly couldn't grow my business until I left my full-time job because I was so burnt out, exhausted, and overwhelmed. And when I look at being burnt out, exhausted, and overwhelmed, that also led me to eating out more and not knowing what I was eating. So it was way easier to just order DoorDash and spend $80 than make a meal at home that probably would have cost me $20. So when you think about the investment, it's easy to see just the sticker shock of the dollar number, but everything else that comes with it is just going to bring you wealth tenfold in other ways, and not having to go to the doctor as often, so you don't have to pay copays. Like there are so many things that I feel like people do not see when it comes to coaching, because it's not that easy to just like see all of these things and elements that come with it.
I love that saying, you look at the price of the investment, but what you really need to be looking at is the cost of being in the same place 6 months from today.
So powerful to look at How long have you wanted this change? For most of us, it's been 5+ years, and you're unwilling to invest, so you're likely going to stay the same place you've been trying to change for the last however many years. What is the cost of that to you and your sanity?
And the fear of uncertainty too. I think that's the biggest thing for most people. When I invested in my own coach in my own health journey, and most recently with my business coach, there's a lot of uncertainty of what if I make this investment and it doesn't work for me? But what's the other option? To never get the support and just stay in the same place? I keep relating it to investing in my business. First of all, I know I'm going to show up completely differently for myself when I'm invested in a program because I'm paying for it and I want my money's worth. I'm going to be showing up and I'm going to be doing everything that coach tells me to do. And also, sometimes we just have to take the leap and do the scary thing. And what is the worst that can happen? Right? A lot of times we just go like worst case scenario of like, what if, all these negatives, but just as much as you can focus on those negative what ifs, you can also focus on the positive ones. What if this is the best thing I ever do? What if it works out for me? What if this was the one thing that was holding me back from seeing results? And Kate and I both know what we're doing, and we know that we can help you and change your life. So it would be the best choice that you made.
As someone who has invested in coaches that it didn't work, I have to really take ownership and reflect on that and know that part of that is because I did not click with that person. I truly went into it seeing the results that that person provided and didn't understand the context around the results. And so I leaped in because I wanted this outcome that I wasn't necessarily aligned with. And I think that's really important too. And truly connecting and aligning with the coach that you choose is important too. And understanding their method and making sure that that feels like it will fit in your life is important, because that's the only way you're actually going to do it. I so appreciate having you on. Tell us where we can find you. I know you have a podcast, so tell us all the things.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Christie Fit, CHRISTIE. FIT_. My podcast is called Stronger Within, and right now you can find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. All right, thanks for having me.